Hi, I'm Sam,
And I'm Matt,
and this is episode number 2 of the Just Us podcast.
where it's just us.
All right. And then you had promised last week that I was going to tell you about the Build Back Better bill as it relates to housing. And so let me bring up on the screen. This is from the White House talking about the provision, sort of briefly summarizing here. Let me read this off to you. It says, it makes the single largest and most comprehensive investment in affordable housing in history. The framework will enable the construction, rehabilitation, and improvement of more than 1 million affordable homes, boosting housing supply and reducing price pressures for renters and homeowners. It will address the capital needs of the public housing stock in big cities and rural communities across America and ensure it is not only safe and habitable, but healthier and more energy efficient as well. It'll make a historic investment in rental assistance, expanding vouchers to hundreds of thousands of additional families. And it includes one of the largest investments in down payment assistance in history, enabling hundreds of thousands of first generation home buyers to purchase their first home and build wealth. This legislation will create more equitable communities through investing in community-led redevelopment projects in historically under-resourced neighborhoods and removing lead paint from hundreds of thousands of homes, as well as by incentivizing state and local zoning reforms that enable more families to reside in higher opportunity neighborhoods. Okay, so that's the idea. And you know how legislation works. The House approved it one way, it goes to the Senate. The Senate's going to make changes, it'll go back to the House. So I didn't want to get into the exact specifics of, well, this amount of dollars is going to go to Section 8 or the newer affordable housing program or whatever, because I think it's all very subject to change. And it seems like a lot of the debate that's going on between these, two parties, right? The Democrats and the president being in favor of this bill, Republicans not. There were a couple of Democrats that crossed over, right? That guy from Maine too, right? Was against it, based on which I think is an interesting principle. And I wanted to discuss that with you just at least briefly today, about well, they're saying this is not paid for already, right? The numbers of how much this is going to cost has become what it comes down to. I mean, a couple of things, right? You see huge criticisms of the bill, one, because it's so large that nobody could read the whole thing, right?
Yep.
I thought that was the norm already. I thought all bills were made like that already. They have that's why we elect these people, and then they have their teams around them that this is how it works. Yeah, pork barrel legislation, or certain things getting paid for at the same time, and there may be parts that are questionable. I have no idea. I didn't read the bill, right?
It's impossible.
And certain other things, like saying how the argument being about whether or not the bill is fully funded, how there are going to be certain things. I think it was related to childcare, right? Certain things having to do with families with children. They're saying, well, it's going to be paid for on the first year, and then they have to vote to continue paying for it moving forward. So then that becomes a major discrepancy between, oh, this bill costs this much or this bill costs this much. And this idea that this will increase the federal deficit.
Right. So I believe the numbers, I'm not 100% on it, but it's like this bill actually costs $231 billion a year for 10 years, which doesn't equate to $1.75 trillion. It's almost 2.5 or $3 trillion that's going to cost. But you're right. Some of the items in the bill only last for 1 year. Some of them only last for 5 years, right? But if they are voted to be reinstated, then this bill is going to cost more money. It understates the value of the bill.
So like I was watching an interview with Elon Musk, and they asked him, well, what do you think about this Build Back Better bill? Because of course, as a CEO of Tesla, he's very involved in all of these various incentives and his company has benefited, right, from
Mm-hmm.
tax write-offs that you can take when you buy an EV, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they get expended, and I think the demand is largely fueled by that, right? People who have tax liability can reduce their tax liability if they buy a Tesla at the right time, right?
Right.
And if they buy it at the wrong time when the incentives aren't there, then they don't get that kind of tax benefit, right? I guess.
Essentially
Not
costing them more money,
not a
theoretically.
Yeah, I'm not an accountant or CPA or anything. I'm not even good at doing my own taxes, so never mind if I said anything too specific about tax. But what I am saying is that I watched this interview with Elon Musk, and he was talking about the Build Back Better bill, and his first response is, well, I don't know if it's good or not, which I thought was pretty honest. But he went on to say that, well, maybe Congress shouldn't pass this bill because it's just burning. I mean, I'm paraphrasing him, but he basically said it's burning too much money.
Mm-hmm.
It's burning too much money. And if this were a business, this would be unacceptable.
True. I think that's we're not supposed to run government as a business, but the government can learn a little bit from businesses as far as smart spending. And this bill does spend a lot of money that we don't have. I mean, I saw something where President Biden is signing a bill to increase the debt ceiling on our budget, and I don't know how it's going to make us paying our debts better if we raise caps, but it does show that this bill is costing more than like what we can spend. Like I said earlier, about $230 billion a year, we're rising the deficit. I don't know.
Nonetheless, I feel personally like the why is on point, right? We're gonna, help families with kids. I mean, it's interesting. And let me just go back to that screen share just for a sec so we can, I thought the caption of it was really interesting, right? At the top of this, this page describes the whole bill, and the subtitle of the whole thing, President Biden's plan to rebuild the middle class. So it's really interesting because I feel like a lot of it is really not for the benefit of the middle class, right? The middle class isn't the one who benefits, at least when you're talking about some of this housing stuff, right? I mean, yeah, down payment assistance for first-time homeowners, that sounds pretty middle class to me, okay? But like housing vouchers, right? Is that middle class? I mean, but yeah, I think these are good things. I think I'd rather risk mistakes in that sense of being too, are we too generous to the poor? And that's a personal thing, right?
Right.
It's a personal thing. So I could see how there are a lot of people who are opposed to this for a number of reasons. But I just thought it was interesting though that how it's really trying to appeal to the middle class. I also question that. Is that because that's who's going to reelect you, right? I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to, put this is democracy though, right?
Right.
But the carrot leading the horse is really, it is about reelection, isn't it?
It's always about reelection, unfortunately.
So, I mean, that's good. It's not all, well, I mean, there are exceptions to that, right? When if Biden or Trump serve a second term, there'll be a lame duck, and then it won't be about reelection, and it will come down to their agendas, right? So
that's the most, that should be what it's most on, right? It feels kind of silly that we look at the first term of a presidency as pretty much his 4-year-long reelection campaign, instead of actually getting things done. Back to your middle class, kind of like, is it really helping the middle class? I don't even think, I think that many Americans consider themselves middle class, even though they're not. Middle class has like this underdog type mentality where you're fighting really hard. You're not poor because those guys gave up on themselves already, right? Like in the middle class person's brain, like I'm fighting against the big corporation because I'm not there yet. I want to have a better life for myself, my family, but not there. I'm fighting so hard to be not in the impoverished category. I'm not on social help. I'm not on all this other stuff, but I need to fight. And I feel like that is the government branding of a middle class person, someone who is doing everything they can, living life, but still not being able to get ahead. And well, yes, that's so. This bill doesn't feel like that based on the housing and the healthcare stuff I talked about. Does not even address anything about middle class. It's seniors and Medicaid, which are two programs that are not for your standard middle class, right? Brands, so to speak. Like we don't think about seniors as being any class. They're retired, right?
Right.
So
they're not making. I mean, if anything, Matt, what do you even call people who are not, the sub middle class? Yeah. What is the non-pejorative term for that?
I have no idea.
Well, we'll save that for next week. That's my homework. I'm going to figure out what I could say that isn't too PC, but that's PC enough to float rather than calling them the poor.
Yeah.
Right. So what you're saying is that a lot of people who are actually poor are identifying as middle class, or you're saying actually people who are upper echelon are identifying as middle class?
I'm saying that both. the gap, it's like the middle class has become here versus just here. Whereas before, and I believe in the 80s when they like coined this term, they had a like specific like guidelines, like over this income amount, under this income amount, family of four, and then that's how they that's kind of how they said this is how much tax you're going to pay. That'd be because you're middle class. But I feel like today's standard, it's less about how much like money and tax return you have, but more about how you feel. And when you do that, you really mess up how financial incentives and financial programs affect the people, because they're going to be like, well, I am working really hard for everything that I'm doing. Why don't I qualify for any of these things? I'm working hard. I have a family. I barely get to see them. I'm not rich, that's for sure. I'm not upper class. I'm not the 1%er, but I don't qualify for anything that this new bill has. Like, this is not fair. But when the bill comes out, and it's branded for the middle class, it includes so many more people emotionally than I feel like the bill does, because like you said, housing vouchers and the assistance with the first-time homebuyer credit or first-time homebuyer assistance is great. But is it really targeting our idea or the idea of middle class? Is it? It's not for the healthcare side, that's for sure.
Funny, I was so worried before today that we'd end up, appearing to just be pushing forward or be strongly, proponents of this bill. But the more we talk about it, almost seems like, well, there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot we're kind of questioning, even whether it's the semantics or the actual effect. I mean, how would you respond with this kind of sentiment? First of all, I say I don't agree with it, right? I don't agree with the sentiment, but say like, we're imagining this middle class person who doesn't spend any time with their family and works too hard and probably spends it all every month on their bills, right? With expanding housing, affordable housing the voucher program, right? Why wouldn't that person decide, well, okay, maybe I'll just quit my job?
If that's what middle class living is in America, where I can remain at home and see my kids and work an 8-hour regular job at wherever, maybe that's the American dream. Maybe the middle class of America looks like this, and I'm just caught in between like middle class and upper class, and that's not a place where we're supposed to be.
I mean, when you put it that way, it makes me feel like if I were them, it might be better just to take a step down and take the handout.
Yeah,
take the handout, right? Get the Medicaid, get the vouchers, move it in the place there. Not all affordable housing places are bad per se.
Especially if
A
the
lot of them
government's
are
making this huge
decent.
investment, right?
Uh-huh.
Largest investment the government's ever made in housing to make all areas of the rural America and urban living better and healthier for all people. Why am I burning the candle at both ends and burning it right up the middle when I could just do this and join the rest of what President Biden considers the middle class? Right? I mean, it's unfortunate that it takes like a lot of this kind of like reading and dissecting and distilling this kind of information to really figure out what these political messagings mean. But I guess that's why we talk. But it's just from face value, you look at this bill, right? As someone who has 1 hour of free time every week to maybe look at the news app on their phone, and you're like, this is great. They're looking out for me. And then when it comes to pass, nothing ends up happening for you anyway. And you're like, what happened to the $1.75 trillion that supposedly came out? Like, what happened to that? And then I feel like, not that I'm saying either party is right in what they're doing, but they're going to be like, well, when the old guy was in there, when Trump was in there, I got money in the mail or directly deposited in my bank account. When this $1.75 trillion package came out, I got nothing. And that will severely hurt the agenda or the progression of the reelection, right? But most people forget. Who remembers the CARES Act and what it covered? Not that many people. They only remember the money that came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Biden is doing something that will help more people. He just branded it wrong. What the bill should have found out. Maybe you can go and write him a nice letter when we find out what the what the nice term is for people who aren't yet middle class.
Right.
And brand it that way, because like I said, the end goal is not to help what Americans believe to be the middle class. The end goal is to help those people who make under like 40,000, 50,000 a year.
Right.
And that's not anybody who lives in Hawaii who has a job that enables them to buy a home. This Build Back Better plan is not going to help them. If they're a homeowner up to their eyeballs in mortgage and credit card debt, but working, at 2 jobs, maybe they have husband works 1 job, wife works 2 part-time jobs, got to pick up the kids in between, right? Maybe that's their life. They believe they're middle class, but not according to this bill. Their kids are older than 3 and 4. They don't get the free preschool. They don't get the free tax credits because their kids are maybe they have 1 or 2 kids who are 18 and 17 or 19. They're in college, but they're still living at home. They can't get a job right now because, well, they just can't. It's hard, right? They got all these new things, and there's education credits. So we're going to up the Pell Grant by what, $400 to $500? College, as far as I last checked, is not a couple $1,000s a year. It's like 10, 20, $30,000 a year. $500 extra Pell Grant. What is that? It's like a slap in the face. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the end goal, what is he trying to do? I feel like if we just knew that, then we could all band together and say, yeah, there's still people who make under $50,000 a year. Yeah, we should help them out. I'm suffering, but you know what? At least I know I'm not going to get anything from this. But maybe those other people who are suffering are. I feel like that would be a far better. And even if I don't get anything from it, whatever, right? I knew from the beginning I wasn't going to get anything from it. And I think that that's a huge problem that we have in everything. No one has their messaging correct. It's all messaging wrong. And back to the housing part, do you think Hawaii will get lots of money from this bill? Do you think that people in Hawaii will actually feel anything from anything that you've kind of gathered from it? Will we get more housing units?
Well, we'll see. I mean, affordable housing is a big deal in Hawaii.
Oh, I know.
I mean, yeah, and the development of it. I mean, there's so many buildings that are put up with a sizable amount of those units in the building allocated for affordable housing.
But do
You
you
know, so
consider affordable housing in Hawaii to be actually affordable? For the middle class,
Yeah,
as defined
for the
by this
middle class,
bill.
because the middle class is like making six digits, right? That's what the
Yep.
middle class is.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but for the greater whole of people, I feel like they could be really, they could really misunderstand this as being like, it's going to help me because I feel like I'm middle class. But middle class is defined by income, defined by family members in the household, defined by whether or not you have a home yet, right? Those are the middle class definitions that the government and this bill uses, whereas our emotional idea of middle class could be different.
Yeah. Well, you know, it'll probably be good for banks. It'll be good for politicians. It's going to be good for banks. It's going to be good for bureaucrats, no matter what.
It's going to be good for real estate
Whether
investors.
they sign it, if they don't sign it, right? Like, not to be super pessimistic about, you know, verging on nihilism over here when we started with enlightened self-interest, and I think we're moving downward. But
yeah.
you know, I don't know. I'm open-minded to it. I think we need to learn more. We need to hear the discussion that goes on. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of valid criticisms. There's some criticisms that seem just kind of like skewed too, right?
Yeah.
My own included. You know,
hey,
it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, me too. And we're supposed to be skeptic. We're not supposed to be cynical. Be skeptical, question it. You know, figure out what's really going on. But you know, I've always thought about this and never really looked it up, and I probably should. But what happens if we are delinquent in the U.S. debt? Like, we got this deficit, right, of spending, and we got debt, that's for sure.
What are they gonna pull up and repo Air Force One or something?
Yeah, I mean, what are they gonna do?
They're gonna foreclose on the White House. Like,
what are they gonna do? Start seizing the president's ass, like the White House and the Air Force One, and then they're gonna start like repoing like the capitals?
No, of course not, right? I mean, I'm just making a silly suggestion by saying anything like that. It's, of course, they issue more debt, right? I mean, a lot of this has to do with bonds, which are bought up by foreign investors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's almost like providing opportunities for foreign investment.
Then it becomes like, all right, this monetary policy and all these factors that are being listed are like being like inflation and, you know, debt and all these other things. Are we like, if the goal is to do something, why are we taking such a wild approach to solving it? You know, like we got all these problems, we got all these things. Okay, what do we want not to happen? Okay, we know that. What do we want to happen? Okay, we got that. Well, how do we do that? Okay, well, we got a couple ideas. And then instead of like saying what we're doing, here we're going to brand it as the bill to build wealth for the middle class of America, right? Like that, it might not build wealth for anybody except the bank and investors, bureaucrats, and all these other people. It'll build wealth for them, maybe, or most likely, but will it build wealth for the actual middle class?
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would give you like a blueprint. Say, this is the bill. If you're a middle class person, this is the form you fill out to see if you can get everything in the bill. And if you return this form to us, we'll provide to you everything that the bill promises. Simple, right? You can get the people, the things that the bill promises, that's to the people who need it. Versus now we have to go on all these sites and read like thousands of different, like, you know, it seems like marketing companies who say, did you think like you can get any more money off the last bill or the CARES Act or the SBA, whatever loans? Do you think you qualify all these things? Go fill out this form that we have. And it's like, not even a government form, it's like a form from them. And you don't know if there's actually like, if you're giving your private information away to some private company. Like, Why doesn't the government just have like they have the bill, provide like an extra, I don't know, $10 million in there to help. I'm sure there's more than $10 million to help distribute the benefits in the bill. Just set up some committee that's going to dissolve after 4 or 5 years, intake all the forms that the bill has, and then distribute all the funds. Right? And maybe even have that before the bill comes out, where you can have like a survey. I mean, haven't they heard of SurveyMonkey and right MailChimp?
Right, exactly. Yeah,
will you qualify? Click, 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 click. Nope. Well, you're not going to qualify. At least that way, they're not going to like be like, I'm not going to be hoping and saying, well, there's this thing that's going to pass, and I'm going to hope it passes because I'm going to get some, I'm going to finally be able to get a house. And when it passes, you're like, wait, I got to make that much money in Hawaii? Where do you want me to go and buy? Like, this isn't going to help me.
Yeah. Well, I think you're touching upon, a topic we'll have to save for another podcast. But I mean, with communication technology nowadays, is it time for more direct democracy and less Republican democracy, right? And I don't mean
right.
I should rephrase for clarity: representative democracy, right? Yeah. Where as a republic, we're choosing our leaders to make decisions. I mean, like what you're saying, SurveyMonkey, how about put it to a referendum? Vote online, make it secure. I don't know how, I don't know if you have to actually go into the elementary school and push it just so everybody knows, the Russians aren't involved in it or whatever. But, can we do stuff like that nowadays, especially with something so divisive?
Yeah.
Why not put it to the people and let them vote?
Yeah, especially like you said, something so this is a huge deal.
But the thing is that we know the middle class has been shrinking, and it's continued to shrink, right? Year after year, right? I mean, that's the trend. And it's unfortunate because we look at other countries where it's like, well, you don't want to live in this country because conditions are squalor for most people. The rich are very, very rich and the poor are very, very poor, right? So maybe we can't do direct democracy because, if everybody really had their vote, it becomes a kind of revolution, right? Where the people who are in control, who do, that 1% would be disenfranchised to a level where it would be like, they'd be freaking out, right?
Yeah,
and maybe rightfully so. I mean, there's a question. How much is a 1% actually, like you're saying, well, these people who receive so much compensation are the ones who are providing so much value to society. Maybe Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and these characters actually maybe they are looking out for us, But if we really put it back and let's put on SurveyMonkey and just go with the results, and give everybody a fair chance, right? Every minority, every disenfranchised, from A to Z, give it to all the for lack of a better term, poor, right? Mm-hmm. That probably is a simple majority of the United States, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And then are they going to say, well, no, let's go ahead and tax the rich 99% because their 1% is more than I'm going to, in a week is more than I'm going to make in my lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Right? Why not? Well, and then as a thought experiment, I think that'll be really interesting to see. I mean, what would happen, right?
And I think like that would show light into like how the wealthy people become rich, right? None of us really think about this, but Bill Gates invented Windows, right? Microsoft. How many people use that today? Almost everybody, right? So he's provided value to almost everybody in America, at least in America, who uses Microsoft products. Oh, yeah. We had to pay for it, right? We did, but he invented it. Amazon. How many of us use Amazon? Because of Amazon, the pandemic was a lot easier because we were able to get products, right, that we normally would need to go to the store for. All in one place. Easy, shipping free, returns simple. We use it, we can do it. That's value to everybody. So who's to say that he is not earning every single cent that he makes every single second. He probably makes more money in a minute than we do in a year. But who's to say that is not worthy of that? And if you believe it's not, well, imagine your life without it. Because you, by ordering from Amazon, by using a Windows device, by having Microsoft, you are paying them to be richer, right? So could you live your life without these products? How much does it really matter to you? And if that matters 1%, then maybe that 1% of your income to him does make it right. Who's to say?
But at the same time, as a human being, I mean, who's to say that because you invented the best online bookstore ever, you deserve to have exponentially more opportunities and wealth and things and attention and all the things that people crave? I mean, I'm a human on earth too. And so is a, homeless person down the street eating out of some trash can. Right. And so so
how do you redistribute that?
Maybe that I think, I think you were pretty clear. You think so. And I think so too, that people do have sort of basic human needs, and that we as a just society should provide to them. Yeah.
And I feel
at least
like
basic, on a very, very basic level. Right.
I mean, we can't expect everybody to be Gandhi. Can't expect everybody to be Mother Teresa. You just that shouldn't be the guide, the baseline. It should be a baseline of human needs that we can all agree on: housing, safe place to sleep at night, safe food.
Yeah. Well, Gandhi didn't need food stamps because he was starving himself anyway, right?
Yeah, he was fasting for how many years, right? So he just lived on water. But for those, like the wealth distributions, I feel like if those wealthy people were to kind of maybe not make it so that their life is like impoverish themselves or something like that, but there has to be a better way than to force them to redistribute their wealth, but have them redistribute their wealth in a way that would benefit the country that made them rich, right? If it wasn't for capitalism, this opportunity would not have happened. But again, if it wasn't for them, there wouldn't be this wonderful technology or whatever. But where does that, it's like, I always talk about R&D for pharmaceutical companies, right? The reason why medicine costs so much is because the research and development of these products are risky. They could lose it all. So when they finally get something that sticks, they have to charge for all the failed products and the risk they're willing to take for this industry. But at the same time, the products are like literally saving people's lives. Should they be able to charge $3,000 a month for this product? That's a moral question, right?
Right.
Not a business question. But then who makes up the difference? Which is why I think that the government itself should have like a nonprofit arm that develops these things, which needs to be very well looked at, reviewed, because we don't want them like hiring out some lab that's making false results just to get, products pushed through, because the FDA approves all these products. And if the FDA and the government develop the same, right, they could be shooting out rubbish at us and we have no idea.
As long as the lab is not in Wuhan, China.
It's an interesting thing. We don't want to go into that. But for those of you that
save that one for next time.
Gain of function. Look into gain of function research. Gain of function. You can get some rabbit hole there, but not for us.
Right.
For anybody who's listening. Gain of a function. GAIN. Gain of function.
Yeah. Well, that was the big thing with Fauci, right? And they're grilling him in Congress about, how much the US was funding that, right?
It's not good. But anyhow, that kind of goes totally against what I just said about governmentalizing or socializing the medical research portion. But I mean, we can't really say that this definitively, but people will be people. So we have to get the what is the guiding goal. Why are we doing all this? If the guiding goal of this company to make money, well, then maybe you shouldn't be in healthcare, The guiding light is to provide care to help people live their best life, healthy life. Then perhaps number two should be make sure that the business doesn't fold, right? Because we have to make sure that the business doesn't fold. And I feel like if the patients knew that the business was going to fold, if they didn't make their copay, if they didn't pay for their doctor services, the doctor could disappear tomorrow because heck, the doctor is, financially unstable because the system doesn't pay him. Like, would you be more generous with your money? Would you be more generous with your relationship with your doctor? Would you be less combative if you knew that the doctor could close his doors tomorrow and bankrupt himself because he took out this huge loan just to open his practice to help people? Would you be more compassionate to him? So it's all about the why we're doing things, the how, and if people could see that, if people were more honest with their patients, with their clients about everything, then it might be a little bit better for everybody involved. I read an interesting book, and this is kind of back into the professional, but they said when choosing your Medicare agent, when choosing your insurance agent or your financial planner, you want to find one that has a nice car, has a good office, nice clothes. Because if you find one that doesn't have those things, well, they might not be in business next year. And that relationship you built with them, that the help that they're giving is gone. You want to build a relationship with a professional for life. You want to make sure that they can pay the bills, that they can remain successful, that they can remain in doing the profession for you. But then on the flip side, on the professional side, we're taught, well, you need to buy all these things. You get the BMW, get the fancy office, you need to get the nice clothes. And how do you do that if you're not successful? You charge it, put it on a credit card, take out a business loan. But that's fake on both sides, right? Or fake to the client now because the client thinks that this lie of this rich person, successful in front of them, is security to them. But it's not, because I have everything on debt, I bought everything on credit.
Right.
But if my client knew that how I do things, why I do things, they could care less about my car, my practice location. They could care less about what I'm wearing because they know that my focus is helping them. That's my job. My job is not to drive a nice car. But it's so strange. Strange, probably not the right word. It's just so like different in my head that's how you would, and that's how that's how I do it, right? I look at a store, and if it's nice, right, I think, oh, I want to go here. It's a nice store. Right. It's a nice restaurant. I want to go here. I don't want to go eat over there. It's not that nice. But the food could be way better in that restaurant than it is at the really nice restaurant. But I'm going to go to the really nice restaurant all the time. Just makes you think, right? Like, we're all playing this game of like facades. If we just all told everybody, this is back to what I like to do, is just go through how I think through my clients' scenarios, how I think through all the different ways that, we can help, or with my experience help, and reveal that process to the individual, the client that we're helping. Tell us why we're doing it. Tell us how we got to these conclusions. And then what our main goal is, then I feel like it's so much easier, because then the client would feel, like a duty to us to help us remain in the position that we're in, so that, right. And because they've had such a great experience, they would be willing to refer another person who wants the same kind of experience from someone who is dedicated like that. And that's how you should,
because it makes them look good referring you. Right.
And we're not just like, it's not because we have a good car or nice. Now, this could be biased because I don't drive a nice car and I don't have a nice office and I meet people online or on the phone. It would be biased for me. But what I'm saying is that it's far better than the alternative of putting everything on credit, taking out this huge loan that you can't pay back unless you break it up over 15 years. And then you're 15 years in debt for your business that's probably failing. You're behind on 3 months on your loan, right? Because you needed to be perceived as someone who's successful, just to get clients.
Well, we got to wrap it up here.
We do.
Yeah, we're a little overtime today, but great discussion. So, looking forward to seeing you again next week. We'll hammer it out some more. Get in touch with me in the meantime. We'll talk about.
We will definitely
stuff,
figure out what our next episode will be on episode 3.
Okay.
Hopefully, it's not the Revenge of the Sith.
Great.
Anyway, I'll talk to you later.
All right. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Bye, Sam.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Be sure to come back next week where we'll go over other things that are filtered through our life lens as we document and share our journey with you folks listening to us on the podcast. We'll see you then.